Dear listeners, thank you for supporting us with your subscription. Enjoy watching. When I reached the door, I saw an elderly woman with a roll in her hands. "We are closed, come back tomorrow," the woman said. I was about to close the door when she spoke again. "Young man, I won't keep you. I am leaving tomorrow morning, and I need money, urgently. I think you will buy it." The woman looked me straight in the eye, and I involuntarily took a step aside, letting her into the store. It's a travel box from the early 19th century. I don't even know how it ended up in my family. "I have no use for it, so I came to offer it to you," she said as she unwrapped the bundle. "Do you want me to appraise it, or are you selling it?" I asked. "Both," she replied. She carefully set the ivory-encrusted lacquered wooden box on the table. "Well, what do you think?" I examined the box closely and replied, "It's very beautiful, and it's worth a lot of money." I don't know why I said a sum of 1.5 times the real value of the box. The woman smiled and said, "Well, I agree." The woman had long since left, but I kept looking at the box and opening and closing the lid as if mesmerized, admiring the beauty of the finish. Then I took all the drawers out of the box and began to gently tap the walls, carefully checking the grooves in which they were attached. It looks like it has a secret, I thought, but what is the secret and how do I find it? While I was doing this, I didn't notice how morning came. There was still no result. In the afternoon, I continued to study the box with even greater zeal. I carefully examined it inch by inch, sliding the drawers in and out many times. I tapped the bottom, the lid, and the walls, but it was in vain. The secret would not come out. I had no doubt it was there. At that time, no jewelry box like this was produced by craftsmen without hidden compartments. Such boxes were used as a necessary travel item when traveling frequently in stage coaches or carriages. It simply had to have such a nook, invisible to the eyes of strangers, where important documents, money, and valuables were kept. Another day went by and the box never revealed its secret. I became angry. There was even a moment when I wanted to hit the box on the floor. But I tried to calm down and start all over again. I tapped the box again, opened one half of the drawers, and pressed the walls, the bottom, and the lid. But all in vain, the cash was undetectable. The night without sleep had taken its toll. Exhaustion overtook me at the table where the box stood. I dreamed that I had found the secret of the box and opened the secret compartment. But when I woke up, I couldn't remember anything. It's a pity to break it. I'll put an appropriate price. Who knows about such things will buy it. But still, I decided to try it one last time. I tried to imagine the movement of the owner to open the secret compartment. I moved the box towards me and pressed the lid with both hands. There was a crackling sound, and with a quiet rustle, the right latch swung open. It was so sudden that I even recoiled. Wow, it's so simple. In the stash that opened was a small bundle wrapped in a white cloth. I carefully unwrapped the cloth. In the cloth were several silver coins, blackened by time, and a ring. I placed it carefully in the palm of my hand, trying to gauge its weight. It was very old and seemed to be made of silver. The thing was, it was obviously a man's ring. And in the old days, silver was considered a masculine metal, unlike gold, a feminine metal. Men who risked wearing gold jewelry risked being misunderstood by their contemporaries. Later, however, everything changed, and jewelry made of gold began to be worn by men as well. But even nowadays, understanding men will never wear gold jewelry. I took a magnifying glass and looked closely at the ring. The beast's snout, with its mouth open, looked very impressive. The eyes of the predator were skillfully inset with black amethysts, a very rare variety of this semi-precious stone. The finest carvings, hundreds of minute strokes, every wrinkle, every crease seemed to be reflected, making the beast's muzzle almost come alive. The stripes, the grin, the fangs, I scrutinized the ring and the eyes. They seemed too meaningful. I pushed the ring away. Surely this is the look of a tiger. The beast's muzzled face was finely jeweled. But how had this masterpiece ended up in the box? Who had made it and to whom did it belong? The tarnished silver was almost devoid of the usual scuffs and scratches that come with this kind of jewelry. There was only one small flaw, a nick that I thought might have come from a blow with a sword or axe. I couldn't take my eyes off the unusual ring, and deep down inside I was suddenly afraid. I could not understand what it was, and suddenly I got it. The eyes of an enraged tiger. They seemed alive, and their pupils were lit up with black light streaming out of them. And they weren't looking away from me, they were looking right into my soul. These eyes burned through. Suddenly it was hard to breathe. My heart was pounding under my throat. Fear came up from its hidden depths, and with sticky clutches seized and bound my whole body. I shook my head, trying to pull myself together. It was an obsession of vapor. It seemed to me that the elaborately made monster was examining me, as if getting acquainted. In fact, the tiny, meticulously slit eyes were simply filled with incredibly bright black light. Black amethysts. But why can't I turn away from this mesmerizing gaze? Suddenly, I involuntarily put the ring on the ring finger of my right hand. Immediately it felt hot. The heat went up my arm to my shoulder and spread all over my body. My heart began to pound even harder. I began to fall into a bottomless well. And a moment later everything was gone. I was sound asleep. I woke up in pain. My left leg was very painful. It pulsed, whined, throbbed, and gnawed at my thigh. My left leg, which had been paralyzed for 6 months, was now coming back to life. I put my hands on the tabletop and tried to stand up with my feet. I felt the cold that was streaming across the floor. Holding onto the back of the chair and the tabletop, I tried to reach for my cane. I caught it awkwardly and it fell, hitting my left foot. I involuntarily jerked my foot away. The cane was hurting me, but it was a small price to pay for the miracle that had happened to me. My leg was no longer paralyzed. I could even wiggle my toes a little. And then my gaze was drawn to my right hand. From the ring finger, the coal black eyes of a grinning white tiger looked at me. Only the grin seemed to me not too frightening. On the contrary, the tiger was smiling. A year and a half passed. My business was well established. I enjoyed steady authority among colleagues, antique dealers, and customers. I managed to expand the business by opening 2 more stores in our city and a large antique showroom in the capital. I did not walk with a limp, but the habit of even carrying a cane gave me more charm. Doctors vied with each other to tell me that it was a miracle, that this just could not be. I listened to them, just smiling, looking at the ring with the tiger. The splinter that had once clamped my nerve was now gone, thanks to a simple operation. And finally I married Myra. She managed to give me a wonderful daughter. We lived in a country house, but with nostalgia I remembered a small apartment above the antique store where everything began. Fate gave me the opportunity to meet Michelle. One day I got a call from a woman's voice asking me to appraise her jewelry. I am not a jeweler, and I wanted to refuse right away, but the voice sounded familiar. And when the woman gave me her address I recognized Michelle. It was strange, she should have been in the Bahamas by now. We made an appointment, and at the designated time, I rang the familiar doorbell. Michelle had barely changed, only her sparkling eyes seemed to have faded. She was wrapped in a handkerchief, holding it to her throat. "Dmitri," she said, moving aside to let me in, "please come in." She wanted to invite me into the room, but I asked to see the kitchen, with which I had a lot to do. I sat down at the kitchen table, just like 2.5 years ago. "Michelle," she looked at me. "Have I changed that much?" "Dmitri?" With surprise she even stood up. I understood her. By her calculations, I should have long ago dragged a miserable life in some orphanage. But how? "Have you recovered?" "As you can see, I smiled. "I can't say that I'm glad to see you. I don't like to go back to a place where I was hurt." It was as if Michelle had a breakthrough. She told me that she lived with her new husband for about a year. And then, he left her and went to live abroad with Marina, just like her mother. Everything is just awful. It's such a tragedy when you are betrayed by your own children. Really, how would I know that? She is now alone. Marina is far away and does not communicate with her. And the fact that I am with her today is probably fate. And then the eternal theme of women. "Forgive me, I'm a bitch. I've always loved only you. Stay with me." I listened to her wailing and didn't say anything. I had nothing to say to her. I didn't revel in her grief or gloat. I even felt sorry for her in a way. But the visit had to come to an end. And that's when my phone rang. My wife called and asked where to pick me up. I gave her the address and said goodbye. Is that your wife? Michelle asked quietly, and her eyes began to fill with tears. Yes. And how long have you been married? Yes, for almost 2 years now. I stood up and took my cane. Goodbye, Michelle. Try to be happy. Well, that's all, I guess. All is well with me. I have a lovely wife, a daughter, and a job. My future seems cloudless to me, but I know for sure everything can change at any moment. Destiny rules everything. That is why I never take off my ring with a white tiger. Dear listeners, please like and subscribe to our channel. It stimulates me to release new videos for you.